I think a lot of you have been here before, but for those who haven't, my name is Ann Rederer, and I'm head of chapter for Products That Counts. And so I just appreciate everyone who's taken time on a beautiful night to be here tonight. And Products That Counts is one of the largest networks of product managers or project communities in the world. And what we try to do is have executives from leading tech companies, like tonight with Kintan, to come and share with us a unique perspective they have based on their career. And so we'd like to think we have some great sponsors. And before I go to Zillow, I also want to mention Amplitude and Particle, Product That Counts. We want to make sure that we have sponsors that align with our own values and visions. So before I go on further, I'd like to introduce Nate Mock from Zillow, and he'll go from there.
Thanks. Welcome. I just want to say welcome to Zillow. Thank you for coming. We're really glad you could be here. Hopefully you can check out our offices. I do want to say that Zillow is a very product-focused company, consistently ranked one of the best places to work in Seattle, and we are hiring product managers. So if you're interested, please find me, or you can talk to some of our recruiters in the back. But we, again, just thank you for coming. We love hosting Products That Count. Thank you.
Thanks. And I highly encourage you to do so. So this is a brief outline of the timing. So we're going to have a presentation. I'll introduce our speaker tonight in just a moment. But also we're going to speak for a while, and it'll be interactive presentation, and then we'll wrap up, and then afterwards we have a lot of pizza and salads, and so I encourage you to stick around and continue to talk to one another. So we are really lucky to have Kintan Brombat from Amazon. He is the Director of Product Management and Engineering Tech Pinot from Amazon Music. He's here from San Francisco. And then a little bit about Kintan, because he is a graduate of Purdue, has also lived and worked here in Seattle at Microsoft and at Amazon. Two of his favorite questions: what makes a product work, and how might it work differently? He's the only person I've heard of that has bought a car via an iPhone app. You're also a big fan of electric scooters, I see. That's a San Francisco thing. And then what else I like, what I saw in your profile, you have an amazing side perk at Amazon Music, because your exposure to some really cool music is just what I see come through. That would be excellent. So I also have noticed that Kintan's an advocate of women in technology, and also promotes good products overall. So we're really excited to have him here tonight, and he'll outline the talk, and then once we complete the talks tonight, we'll wrap it up, and we'll invite people to come and speak if anyone has a shout out, something you'd like to ask. Maybe you're looking for a job, maybe you'd like to go for drinks somewhere afterwards and continue a particular topic, maybe you have a job offer. So, but without further ado, Kintan.
So thank you so much, Anne. And for those of you whom I haven't met yet, I'm Kintan, as Anne said. I know several of you, and thank you so much for coming, of my friends and folks I've worked with in the past and in present. But I do want to take this opportunity, and thank you, Nate, for hosting us as well, to give a shout out to my friend SC, who hopefully you've heard of her. She's based in SF. She's the one who started Products That Count several years ago. She's a great human being and an even better friend. So a big shout out to SC for putting together Products That Count. Started out in SF. I think there's a chapter in Seattle, which is where we are right now in New York, and I think at least one more place. So, and she organizes not just this event, but also invite-only leadership events where I've met extremely interesting people, as well as yearly conferences and so on. So you can find out about it overall. But we wouldn't be here if it were not for SC. So big shout out to her. A quick round of applause for SC. Thank you, SC. because I know she's going to see the recording, so I had to say that. So I lead products and what we call engineering program management or technical program management, TPM at Amazon, worldwide for Amazon Music. Before we start, I want to start with this. So how many of you are product managers in the audience? Engineers, designers, marketing, entrepreneurs, others. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming. I always start most of my remarks with this slide, primarily because I like to start with this question that, hey, what's the most important job of a product leader, of a product person? And the answer, the short of it is that as a product leader, our job is to talk. I spend most of my day talking, but we get paid to listen. And it's super important if, there's no surprise in today's talk. If there's only one thing you take out of this entire set of conversations, it's this slide. So our job is to talk as product people, but we get paid to listen. And what does listening mean? What does listening mean? Let's see some answers from the audience. I'll shout it out and I'll repeat them. Anyone? Go ahead, Pond.
Listening means to be open to listening to others' ideas or being more empathetic towards others' ideas while having a
Listening means being empathetic to others' ideas while holding and being assertive to your own ideas. Go ahead, Michael.
Ask questions, observe, anticipate.
Ask questions, observe, anticipate. Go ahead.
Understand customers' real needs.
Understand customers' real needs. I'm repeating this so that the recording can capture it, because I know you guys can all hear it. Go ahead.
Well, along with that, to listen for their unmet needs, things they don't know that they need.
Unmet needs is a big one. Anything else? All right, go ahead. Sonal. Ensuring that you solve the right problem. I think these are all right questions. These are all very valid points. To do it in a fairly structured way, listening starts with listening to yourself, intellectual integrity. So if you have a strong conviction to inform a certain decision, either that's backed by a key insight that you have from interacting with customers or interacting with other developers or your stakeholders or designers, or you have some insight from the data that you've gathered. It's having that intellectual curiosity despite having constraints around resources, whether it's time or number of developer weeks you have to build it or cost and so on. Secondly, it's about listening to customers. And customers come in all shapes and forms, but really listening to customers. And in meetings, when you're discussing, when you're huddling with your core team to build it, listening to each other, listening to your developer, listening to your marketing counterpart, designer, engineer, and so on. So we're clear on that. Our job is to talk as product people, but we get paid to listen. And most of today's talk is based on customer obsession, which is one of Amazon's leadership principles. It's like a guiding principle to help inform decisions at Amazon. How many of you work at Amazon? I know there are a few. All right, thanks for coming. So some of it will be repeat for you. So customer obsession, and to be obsessed about customers mean that you're really, obsession starts with first listening to customers and finding out what they really need, what's the right product to build for that customer set at the right time. Now, I've given versions of this conversation a few times. Go to Vimeo or YouTube or your favorite video, and then you search for customer obsession or Kintan, and you can find versions of this talk. And I've evolved this made it a little more personalized for this specific conversation. But the reason I'm telling that is the highest order bit of this conversation is not what I'm saying or what my prepared remarks are, but what your questions are. I think the value you'll get from this next hour or so is a conversation we'll have as a group. You are my customers. I'm talking about customer obsession, so I'll make sure that I'll do everything that's Kintanly possible to be obsessed about your questions and addressing addressing the needs, questions that you have actually, and we can talk in detail both right now as well as afterwards. Sounds good? So the value would be greater if you ask questions. I'll repeat the questions. I think Anne has a mic. I don't have a Q&A slide as my last slide. There is no Q&A. So if you have any Qs, just ask right away. Now, I'll spend about a minute or two later on to talk about Amazon Music. And it'll seem like it's an advertisement for Amazon Music. Now, that's not my intent. Most of the things, actually almost everything I'll say today will be about products that I've been involved with in some shape or form. So I can speak fairly authoritatively about it. Now, when we talk about a product decision that's been taken, I'll use products that I've been involved with, so we can have a deeper conversation about it. But for me to be able to talk about those, you need to know what products I've been involved with. And Amazon Music is Amazon. How many of you are familiar with Amazon Music? Actually, that's maybe easier that way. Perfect. So I will talk briefly about the context of what Amazon Music is. So when we talk about that specific example or a product decision, you'll be able to connect the dots fairly easy. Now, I've been very fortunate. I've been at Amazon for about 9 years. I've been very fortunate to have observed or have been part of some massive decisions, massive product decisions. How customers watch videos or TV, how customers listen to music, and so on. These are very fundamental human traits. Listening to music is a human scale problem or opportunity, and how do we take that fairly common or commoditized user experience, and how do we innovate on it? Watching videos is also fairly commoditized, and there are so many ways to do it. And how do we take that, and how do we enhance it, or how do we innovate, and how do we start with the customers to innovate on that? So we'll use some examples there. Most of what I say will sound preachy by design, but that's not my intent. My earnest intent is to share the mistakes I've made, or share the thinking points or thinking patterns that I have extracted out from observing or being part of those core product decisions, and share it out in a distilled manner with you, so that you can potentially take some of those and see how that might be applied to the product decisions you are going to make. So after every major point I make, and I'll have a slide that says, so what? Like, how can I take this and apply it to my product? And we'll talk about it, and you'll see how it goes. Sound good? Any questions? Any clarifications? How can I make the next half an hour, 40 minutes more interesting, more useful for you? Just shout out if there are questions. So, quick agenda. I'm going to talk about how to simplify, how to take a simple experience and simplify it further. How to invent. So how to take a fairly commoditized experience and push the limit on innovation, how to invent that further. And lastly, I've done a few of these sessions, and when people have questions, a lot of questions have centered around this Amazon's approach of working backwards from the customer, so writing a mock press release and FAQs and so on. So I thought value would be greater if I just have a few slides and walk through an actual example of what a press release might look like. We'll use an actual product and one of the actual press releases, and then we'll walk through the journey of how that press release helped inform some of the decisions. So roughly 10 minutes each, and then depending on the questions. Sounds good? Amazon's been selling music for about 20 years. Amazon started as a bookstore, and then the next category that it started on were DVDs and CDs, so movies and music. So 98 when we started selling CDs and vinyls, and then we had Amazon MP3 as a brand where you could buy digital songs, pay 99 cents, you get DRM-free content. We had a mobile app or a suite of mobile apps called Cloud Player, and something called AutoRip. How many of you are familiar with AutoRip? All right, so we'll talk about that. And then I joined somewhere in January 2013. So I've been at Amazon Music for about 5.5 years. So most of the examples we'll be talking about would be this onwards. My first project was to to help build a streaming service for Amazon Music streaming service. And the first product is what we call Prime Music. We'll talk to that. And then Music Unlimited, which is a standalone full catalog music subscription service. How many of you are Amazon Prime members? Thank you. And have you heard of Prime Music? Have you used Prime Music? Thank you for doing that. All right. So Amazon's one of the few places worldwide where you can get music in all forms. So you can buy CDs and MP3 songs. You can have streaming services that comes with Prime membership. You can have pay $9.99 a month and have a full catalog service and so on. So let's talk about enough of the ad. But trust me, this will help to have this context. So simplify. What does simplify mean, and how do you simplify? So many of these experiences, so listening to music, for instance, has been around for quite a few years, and most of the basic things have been figured out. How to access music, how to stream music. So how do you simplify that even further? The way to approach that is to seek out, really observe how customers are using your service or your product, and seek out friction points and either reduce them or remove them. Ideally, remove the friction points. And we'll talk about one experience, one specific experience to it. But what is friction? Let's see a show of hands, or just shout out what is friction in your opinion. Blockers. What else? What do you mean by friction? Go ahead. Yeah. Something that makes the customer or potential user give up from wanting to use the product. Yes, Josh? Inefficiencies. Yes. Go ahead.
Inconvenience or pain.
Pain and inconvenience. Yes. Obstacle. They're all very valid points. Go ahead, Michael.
Additional process steps which are not necessary for time spent.
Yes, time spent or steps that are unnecessary or can be avoided. All valid examples, valid definitions. In the simplest terms, friction is essentially anything that comes in the way of your user and their ability to do the task that your product is supposed to do. In the simplest terms, it's not so complex. In physics, if you go to the first principles, it's a resisting force in a moving object. But in product basic layman terms, it's essentially anything that comes in the way of your user and their ability to complete a task. And task could be a single task that a feature does, or a task that an entire product or service is supposed to do, and so on. Sounds good? We're clear here? Offline access. So when we first started researching the market segment, talking with customers to understand, hey, what do you not like about the mass streaming services? One of the key inputs from customers, when we listened to the customers said, hey, I don't like that. If I'm not paying money or if not paying extra money, I cannot download my songs. I cannot listen to it when I'm on that hike where there is no cell reception, or when I'm in a flight and I don't want to pay $20 for go-go internet, and so on. So I said, great. Let's build a service for the large, for the critical mass or the large customer base. And as part of Prime membership, let's give an on-demand music service. Call it Prime Music, which is ads-free, allows you to access millions of songs. And by the way, unlike other free services, you can download these songs. They're available for offline access as well. Download as many times as possible. Download as many songs as possible. We thought, wow, we have a winner on our plate, and because this directly addresses customers' needs. So we launched Prime Music, and then we went and continued listening to customers, continued talking with customers, and more than just listening, observing customers. So in few of the customer research studies, one of those visits, the ethnographic usability research and so on, while talking to customers, we realized that customers were able to download songs, but when we tagged along with them to their gym or to their hike, or when they were commuting and they were in New York and in SF, where they were in the BART and they didn't have signal or so on, we realized that there was this frustration. I asked one customer and they said, hey, oh God, I'm going on this flight and I'm dreading listening to Britney Spears again. Like, why? Just download another song, but hey, gosh, I wish I remembered to download a new song. I just have this Britney Spears playlist that I've downloaded, and I don't have anything else. And every time I get on a flight, I have to listen to the same song or same playlist or same album. Every time I go on a hike, I have the same anthem playlist that I've been listening to. I've gotten bored with that. So we realized that struck a chord that, hey, just providing the ability, just allowing customers to download music was not sufficient. The real intent of the customers was to be able to listen to music they love when they didn't have connectivity, and when they were not connected to the internet. So while us and most of the other services did allow customers to download, that wasn't sufficient because there was still friction. The friction was customers were required to download songs, required to remember that, hey, what songs to download, and then do it every time they wanted a new set of content. So we thought about it, and we essentially said, hey, let's do it for the customers. We have recommendations. We know what a customer might like to listen to, and now we know what customers download. So we said, hey, let's download a few hours of songs for the customers automatically. And every time they connect to Wi-Fi, we'll just automatically refresh the songs. So the songs or a playlist, we actually started with recommended playlists. So on your iPhone app, there is this setting called offline recommendations, and if you enable it, automatically the songs will be downloaded. So you go on the next flight, and you go up. The flight takes off, and you don't have connectivity. You open up the Amazon Music app, and voila, there's songs, there are a list of playlists and songs that you'll enjoy. So just providing was not sufficient. This is an example of what the offline mode looks like in the iPhone app, for instance. So the highest, go ahead, Barry, your question?
I'm sorry, but you asked this question.
Yeah. I was waiting for it.
Here we go. So I feel like maybe you said stuff that I actually really want. So
yeah.
You guys decided to go ahead and do that recommendation for them to download. Did you just do that because you guys knew that was going to be the right thing? Or you asked customers, what if we did this? How did you decide that was the right thing?
Yeah, the Barry's question.
Or did you break down Spotify and said this is their biggest weakness? That's another way you can
yeah. So so Barry's question was when we found out that there was there's a gap in customer behavior, or there was this frustration that the customers that we had observed while observing customers. How did we decide that this was the right solution? My approach, and then Lance had a separate comment, I guess, anecdote that, hey, or did you break down some competing service and say, hey, what is that service's gap, and how do you address that? I think there are two different salient points, and I'll address both of them. A generic comment and a specific comment. Generic comment is asking customers. We should always ask customers how would they design it. How would they solve their problem? Because if you're really researching something, and if you're talking with customers or you're observing them, they have this urge, the fact that they're letting you observe them or, participating in the research, they have this urge to tell you how to fix it or how to design it and so on. And more often than not, they're wrong. But you have to listen. You have to listen, let them tell you how to design and so on. But I've found that value is greater if you ignore what they say on the solution part and just observe on what's the actual pain, not focus on their design, what's the actual pain. And then you look at multiple vectors on how to address the pain, where the pain was most salient. The pain was most salient in here where the customer had to remember to download. So how do we figure out a way where the customer does not have to remember to do something? So we focused on the most salient pain point and addressed that first. Now Lance's point was a very interesting point. Part of listening is so Lance's point was, hey, did you look at a competing music service and tear it apart and see, hey, where was a gap and address that? So we did not do that in this case, but it's an interesting, it's a useful exercise where part of listening is I like to use a military analogy. listening posts. If you've read military literature, so there's a notion of a listening post. Essentially, in military, the listening post is in the DMZ or on the frontier. There'll be a few soldiers, on a tall tower. They'll be just listening. They'll be either listening for a signal on the radar, or they'll be just observing the enemy movement and so on. To use that analogy, we try to use a bunch of listening posts. One of the listening posts is metrics, if the product is already out there. One of them is usability studies. Third is macro trends in the industry, micro behavior. Fifth is around competitive benchmarking. Now, we obsess over customers, but it's important to understand how other services approach that same problem, not to copy them, but to understand what expectations have been set by them for your common customer base. So you need to understand that, hey, the customers have expected a certain behavior from a music app, because that's what they've seen in the past. So it's a good exercise to benchmark against some of the alternates. Does that make sense, Lance?
Particularly because they're charging, kind of like the free feature.
Yeah, that's an applicable point in this. But regardless of that, I think it's a good exercise. Go ahead.
I think it explained very well why remembering or offline recommendation was a solution, or is a solution, a good solution for customers pinpoint and remembering to download the song. But still, why offline? I guess we're talking about customer obsession. So my question is, why you guys decided to tackle or take a step on offline experience in the first place? One, why not discovery? If you think about a music experience for a customer, if it went through a couple of different phases or stages, right? Customer look for new music to explore. They remember a song, they download it or not download it, they listen to it repetitively. And maybe in certain edge use cases, I would say it's kind of edge case, they take the music on the fly and they need offline music. But how often does that case happen? What percentage of customers actually download a song to begin with?
I think the question is, why did you prioritize offline versus just overall discovery? We did not prioritize offline versus discovery. I mean, discovery is the core of it. We have great recommendations throughout. I wanted to point this out because this was counterintuitive. This is just one of the features. We have Brett right next to you. Bert can talk to you about all the thousands of features we have. But it's not mutually exclusive. We do have. Obviously, we have recommendations and so on. This was just I wanted to point this out to assert a point on simplicity and simplifying, because oftentimes, and I've done this mistake myself many times in my career, where we look at a customer need as, hey, just offering offline access was sufficient. We actually made that assertion ourselves. But when we talked with customers, we realized that just providing access to offline access may not have been sufficient, because customers still were unhappy about certain aspects. So we went a step further to build this out. Does that make sense? Let me move on to the next one. It starts getting more interesting. We're just getting warmed up. So what? And just I think I've found as a product leader, I found that the most value a product person can add to themselves or their teams is by investing time in asking the right questions. I think the integrity and the depth of questions you ask yourself and your team members is directly proportional to the quality of the product and the output that you make. There's a couple of questions to get you started, but really figure out what's the customer's real intent. Is their intent to have access to offline music, or to have ability to download songs, or to have access to offline music when they don't have connectivity? So that's one example here. And how do you reduce the number of steps or inconvenience and pain points? And not just reduce, how do you remove friction? It's a couple of questions to get you started, but when you go back to your desk or when you're thinking back of your mind, I'd suggest looking at certain interactions in your own product and see how many steps are there, how can I reduce those, and so on. Make sense? All right, let's talk about invent and invention, especially in when you're reinventing scenarios that are already, that have been around, the interactions that have been around for quite some time, value is greater if you rather than asking or requiring your customers to learn a new behavior, do something that they're not used to, observe and understand what's their actual human behavior, and see how you can map your product to that behavior. So when your product or your feature intersects with their existing human behavior, without requiring the customer to learn a new behavior or to be aware of something new, I think that's when magic happens. And to do that, I need to talk about one of my favorite products. You guys familiar with Echo, Alexa, Echo? It's a speaker that Amazon launched in fall of 2014 in a limited preview, and then widely in 2015. As a product builder, I think it does not happen so frequently that a product comes along, a consumer electronic product comes along, where customers describe it as having such a profound impact on their lives, whether it's their new best friend, or is a member of their family, or somebody they are in love with, and so on. So you can only imagine how big of an opportunity it is for any product person who's working even remotely on Echo and Alexa. And obviously, it's a speaker that's connected to the internet and has this cloud AI smart assistant called Alexa. So music is one of the top scenarios. It's a speaker. So music is definitely one of the top scenarios. So you can do all sorts of things. I'm hoping you guys are familiar with Alexa and Echo. How many of you have an Echo or Alexa device? Thank you. So music is obviously a top request. So I have Tap, which is a type of an Alexa device, is a type of Echo device, and I'll despite several advices from my mentors and friends and teams that support me, I'll dare and do some live demos. So and that'll help drive the point home. But let me talk about the first principles of designing a media service. When I say media service or content service, whether you're designing a service that has books, customers can buy or access books or magazines or movies or videos, TV shows, music. At the very core of a consumer media service, there are just two customer needs. Very simple. And you'll see it in any of your favorite apps. As a customer, I know exactly what I want. I know exactly what movie I want to watch. I'll search it up on Amazon Prime Video or any other service, and the results will come up, and I'll start playing it. Or I know which song I want to hear. I'll type it up, and the results will come, and I'll start playing that song. And the second is I don't know what I want to play, or I don't know what I want to listen to. I don't know what I want to watch or read, and so on. So different services they'll have a recommendations section, or they'll send you notifications or emails with recommendations, contextual recommendations, timely recommendations, predictive recommendations, so on and so forth. And they work really well. Both those scenarios work really well, whether you look at Kindle or Amazon Music or video or any other service. In Zillow, I think you search for a property or an area or a zip code, and you see what you get. When we started looking into customer interactions and customer reactions with voice and with Echo, we realized that those same scenarios were expressed by customers in profoundly different ways. It's just incredible to see. And I'll walk through a few examples, but one of them is that, hey, I know exactly what I want. I know exactly which song I want to play. I just don't know how to describe it by name. And it struck upon us with Echo, and I think it was that same time, like in 2015 or so, I guess, late 2015, when Adele came up with her album 25. You guys familiar with? There's a very popular song, Hello, by Adele from that song. So unlike in music, the way artists promote their songs is now album 25 has 10 songs, Album was released in, say, November 2015. I'm making it up. All 10 songs have the same release date. But Adele chooses to promote each song per quarter. So in the first quarter, in the December holiday season, she promoted Hello. Then after 3 months, she started promoting, I guess, Send My Love to Your New Lover, and then Water Under the Bridge, and so on. So I think just in about Q1 or Q2 in 2016, we started seeing scenarios where, I guess you're waiting in a line imagine a scenario where you're waiting in line for your coffee at Starbucks, and you listen to a song that's on the radio. You know it's by Adele because you kind of know it's Adele's voice. You know it's a new song because it's on radio. You kind of assume that it's kind of a new song, and you love it. So you go back and say, hey, play that new song by Adele that I just heard. And that's what customers did. Alexa, play that latest song by Adele. Play that latest single by Adele. And guess what Alexa returned? Alexa returned Hello, because Hello was one of the more popular songs, had the latest release date. But the song the customer heard was Water Under the Bridge. So we realized that, hey, that's a very interesting thing, and customers never typed that. Latest single by Adele. They don't type those things on their search box in the Amazon Music app. But with voice, the friction is so little that they'll just tell whatever comes to their mind. And with Alexa, we've actually trained customers over time by making it so friction-free to essentially not having to convert or translate something that comes to their mind into something that the computer may understand. Just say it out, just ask, and Alexa will respond. So with music, we sought out those kind of friction points and created a world's first voice-forward music service. So, in 2007, 8, when the touch interface came out, there were these mobile-first services. Google Maps, Zillow was one of the key services on iPad, I remember, where these were just taking advantage of the affordances of the device. So we thought, hey, for music, we have a great opportunity to do that, and we did that. So let's do a few examples. So I know exactly what I want to play, but I cannot describe it by name. You guys have a favorite artist? I know the latest single I like is play the latest single by Childish Gambino.
This is America by Childish Gambino.
This is the latest single that I know. You guys know this artist? Highly recommend it. You get the idea. You can add this to playlist and so on. Another one is one of my favorites actually is there are so many songs where I just don't know the name of the songs, or I just misremember the names of the songs. So for instance, how many of you know this artist called Sia? Yeah. So Sia has this song which for the longest time I thought was called this. Play the song that goes 1, 2, 3, drink.
Chandelier by Sia.
You guys know this song? So the song, she keeps on repeating 1, 2, 3, drink, 1, 2, 3, drink so many times in the song. I just thought the song was called, I had no idea it was called Chandelier. I just never thought it was called Chandelier. And I keep asking Alexa, hey, Alexa, play the song 1, 2, 3, drink by Sia, and she'll fail. So that, hey, anticipated those kind of needs where, do customers really need to know the exact name of the songs? Because as a customer, I knew exactly what song it was. I know it was that song where Sia says 1, 2, 3, drink. But I could not describe it by name. You can search for it on your mobile apps, and 1, 2, 3, drink, it won't return it. So what we needed to do was, tying it back to invention, seek out counterintuitive patterns and how customers were looking for music, how they were expecting to get and access and play music on this new platform, and make it easy. It was super hard. Like we had to create for the latest single, we had to create new metadata for single promotion date. Labels don't tell us now which song Adele is going to promote when. We had to create a single promotion date, create a new index for search, and then return it. Similarly, lyrics, create new index for lyrics and return it. Obviously, you can do, it's interesting. Yeah.
A little bit. So you launched your service. It's primarily a web-based service. You launched the Alexa product. You think it's going to be huge, but you don't really know. You start to see the uptake. As a product leader, describe So when did you know that you needed to switch to be voice-centric?
So, yeah, when Alexa launched, Prime Music was available on it. Alexa launched, so it was there. And it was always there. The insight was that, hey, on this new platform, customers were asking for the same scenarios, or the customers were the same interactions that were happening on mobile, or that were happening on web or desktop, were being manifested in a different, in a very, very nuanced way. And it was not so obvious. So we had to kind of seek out, observe how customers were doing, where were the failure points, what we could do to succeed, and just kept on iteratively building on top of it.
Two different teams that were solving this? Resources?
There are many teams. There are several teams. I think for Amazon Music, it was just one team, but there are many folks in the Amazon Music team. Because we have Amazon Music's available on iOS and Android and 20 plus platforms. So when we look at usage trends and see how it's trending, we saw an opportunity that hey, the growth rate of usage on Alexa was unprecedented, and so we just shifted. It's pretty straightforward. Now you look at say Google Analytics and see the some pages are doing well versus other in web, and you just shift resources. Just similar to that. Make sense? You get this idea, and this resonated really well. We did a bunch of marketing campaigns. Now this is Piccadilly in London, so lyrics. These are all lyrics because customers really started asking for songs by lyrics. We did massive, about-line marketing campaigns. This is London and so on. You get the point. Any other questions on this? Go ahead, Sona.
When you're solving this customer problem, which is on Alexa, how do you think about other channels, right? So mobile, solving the same problem for the customer on mobile, and would that kind of expand your scope? How do you think about that in your overall journey?
Yeah, we look at the question was how do you look at cross-channel deployment of a feature and prioritization, and some features are applicable on all channels. Alexa in particular, so on Amazon Music's iOS and Android apps have Alexa inbuilt, so you can actually talk to the app, talk to Alexa through the app. So we look at Alexa-specific problems or opportunities as universally applicable because Fire TV has Alexa, and mobile apps have Alexa, and tablets have Alexa, and so on. But the broader question is really figure out what's the most salient way to innovate in this case, or invent and solve a problem that only we can solve for this customer in a very unique and durable, sustainable, obvious way. Asking for lyrics is an interesting one. I'll just do a side note since we are talking about it. Oftentimes, customers ask for a song by lyrics, but they may not know the right lyrics. You guys know this one. You may know this one. Play the song that goes Blank Space by Taylor Swift. Oh, sorry. That's the name of the song. Sorry.
Blank Space.
Hold on. Blank Space is the name of the song.
That was Chandelier from 1,000.
Play the song that goes, I Have a Long List of Starbucks Lovers by Taylor Swift.
Blank Space by Taylor Swift.
So this is an example where she has a line in the song that says, I have a long list of ex-lovers. But the way she sings it, most customers think she's saying Starbucks lovers. And most customers would ask, hey, play that song Starbucks Lovers by Taylor Swift. So not only do we need to know from lyrics what song it is, but sometimes you have to anticipate that, hey, customer might have not really known the right lyric. And they might. So it's really seeking out, going the extra distance to understand what's the customer's real intent, despite how they are expressing that intent. That's the gist of it. Go ahead.
Collecting all this customer information to get their intent and also their privacy and respect of customer.
Yeah, the question is how do you collect privacy? How do you balance privacy versus this? It's same as so. Privacy is obviously is the primary and utmost is non-negotiable. The intents are not collected on an individual user basis. Intents are collected in aggregate, anonymized aggregate way. So it's not. It's the same as in your iPhone app. If you're on your website, if you're tracking how many times button on the top right is being clicked versus not. and it's along similar lines, just a different medium. So let me give you examples on this one. This is another one where oftentimes the second use case of recommendations is, I don't know what I want to play, but you've seen that customers often have hints or guidance or so on that they can give to the service or to a best friend that, hey, I don't know what I want to really play, but play something groovy or so on. So we've realized that these hints often fall under a few categories. Categories such as genres, era, mood, activity, or just random things that, hey, play something I haven't heard in a while. Let's try that because I don't know what I'm going to get. Play something I haven't heard in a while.
Playing songs you haven't heard in a while from Amazon Music.
A few months ago, I used to listen to this song a bit. Anything that comes to your mind, you ask Alexa, and our goal as the music service is that we'll serve the music that customers likely like. Customers can ask by moods, activities, genres, or all of them combined. And I've seen customers go wild on this. I'll give you a couple examples just so you get the idea. Play happy funk music from the 70s.
Playing happy funk 70s music.
That's funk enough for me. So you get the idea. It's not just moods or activities and so on. Oftentimes, customers would say, "Hey, play something that was popular when I was in college, or play Pearl Jam from '91 to '96." It's a Seattle audience, so we should do one Seattle artist for sure. Play top songs by Pearl Jam from 1991 to 1994.
Shuffling songs by Pearl Jam from 1991 to 1994.
I think that's Black. That's from Black. But you get the idea. Whatever comes to customers' mind, because oftentimes, they may think that they don't know what they want, but they'll always give you some direction or some hint. You go to a restaurant, you say, hey, what are you in the mood for? You talk to the waiter, and then they'll ask, hey, are you in the mood for something spicy or savory or sweet, and so on. So it's something along those lines. But anticipate what the customer is trying to do. Lastly, all kinds of activities. All kinds of locations. You can say, I went to school in the Midwest, as Ann mentioned, so I used to miss stations in Chicago or cities. So I can, instead of, just going to the stations, I can always just ask what's popular in the city I'm from, or my favorite city or whatever, so you can just play what's trending in Mumbai.
I can't find the song Watch trending in Mumbai.
Watch, it's the accent. Play what's trending in Mumbai.
Sure. Playing today's popular songs in Mumbai.
I'm not sure. Mumbai has no popular songs, so let's try some other city. Any city? Throw out a city. Munich. Play what's trending in Munich.
Absolutely. Playing today's popular songs in Munich.
Spanish song. What song is this?
This is X from X by Nicky Jam and J Balvin.
All right. Munich's grooving to some Spanish songs right now, and it keeps on evolving on a daily basis, at least. So you get the idea. Obviously, hundreds of activities. This was one of the most popular activities that got some press. I think Cosmo picked it up, and then it just went bonkers from there. So you get the idea on how to think about innovation, how to think about inventing. Like, take something that's very common, such as listening to music. There have been dozens of apps that allowed customers to listen to music. How do you take that and use map existing customer behavior to innovate on top of existing usage? Make sense? Map to existing human behavior. What counterintuitive patterns are you seeing? How and where are users failing? And how do you anticipate counterintuitive ways of of areas where users are failing. The third one is very interesting, where the most common ones are pretty obvious. You look at the metrics curve and you see, there's a blip. The interesting ones are more nuanced, and that's where innovation happens. A quick one is U2. You guys know U2, they're on tour right now. So U2, when we were just doing this, building this feature, U2 had released a new album. So when customers asked for U2, hey, play U2, we thought, hey, these are U2 fans, so they likely want to listen to the latest album by U2. So we just started playing the latest album, and we saw customers would just skip that song or stop it or do something else. We realized that that artists who have a long discography, U2 has 30 years of discography, Madonna, U2, and so on. Customers are fans of their music from a certain era. We saw a lot of customers just like U2 music from the 80s, your Joshua Tree and so on. So we allowed customers to ask for specific music, and then if they kept on playing songs from a certain era, we'll just personalize it for them. So a quick one, play U2 from the 80s. Oops. Play U2 from the 80s.
Shuffling 80s songs by U2.
You get the idea. So it's not sufficient to just play the latest single or the most popular single by the artist, but really observe, what are customers doing, and then go from there. I want to spend the next 7 minutes, which is what Anne says I have, to talk about working backwards. Now, working backwards is all about starting with the customers, imagining, visualizing, envisioning how do you want customers and press to feel when they hear about your service? How do you want press to describe how your service or your product looks on the day of launch? Incorporate a customer quote or press code, and this is all mock. We started the mock press release before the first line of code is written, and trust me, Word documents are way cheaper than code. So we'll talk about what that means. And this is a mechanism or a process that has worked for Amazon over the last 20 years or so. Mileage may vary. I'm not here to say, hey, everyone should stop doing what they're doing and start adopting this press release and FAQs. That's not the intent. This is something that has worked for us, and we'll just share. Mileage may vary, but it's worth a thought. Let me talk about this and why we write press releases and so on. So if you go to the App Store, the iOS App Store or the Google Play Store, and then poll all the developers, starting with the developer with 1-star rating, which is the lowest rating you can get, and the highest number of reviews, and ask them, hey man, what was your intention when you started building that app? Did you set out to build a 1-star app? I bet you that nobody will say that was the intention. Nobody wants to build crappy products. But there are so many crappy products out there, and it's not because the builders or the product people working on them are just setting out to build crappy products. Products become subpar because certain things were not followed, and they were not customer centric or not data centric, and so on. So working backwards mechanism is a mechanism Amazon uses that has worked for Amazon to ensure that our approach is customer-centric, approach is data-centric, and the products we build are really good. Make sense? It's essentially a combination of mock press release, mock frequently asked questions, and visuals. And visuals not necessarily, it's just sketch visuals to begin with. But do that at the very beginning. We do that at the very beginning of the product cycle. Sounds good? Quick example. This is what my music collection looked like, I think late 2000s, early 2010s, and so on. Lots of CDs and a few vinyls and so on. And I'm sure if you are into music, this is not too different from your collection as well. So as Amazon was selling music, our teams went ahead and asked customers that, hey, what's the first thing you did what was the first thing you do after you get a CD, after you buy a CD? And the unanimous answer in a certain time frame was that the first thing we do is rip that CD. So I can put that music on my MP3 player, on my iPod. I can take it with me on the car. I can take it with me in the gym, on the hike, and so on. Because gone were the days of Discman, this giant thing people kind of carried in their backpacks. And it was the days of MP3 players. So when we found out that so many customers repeatedly, predictably, consistently did this one task of ripping the CD so that they can take it with them on their MP3 player. But why force customers to go through that pain? We're doing it ourselves as customers, as users. So we worked extremely hard. Now imagine going to a music label and saying, hey, that CD that customers bought, and oftentimes, the same customers are also buying that song from Amazon MP3 or iTunes and so on. We don't want to sell. We don't want them to buy another copy. Well, just you won't get paid for that extra song. Don't sell the song twice, but just you'll get that song. We'll give the song to the customers. Those are very hard conversations, but we went and hustle as well as good partnerships with the industry worked out, and we launched something we call auto-rip. Very simple. If you buy a CD, before the CD arrives, the song is available on your Amazon Music app. As simple as that. No strings attached. Nothing. And we took it one step further. One fine day in January 2013, this is the view in their Amazon Music webpage or the web app. When they sign in, they say, hey, by the way, you have 3,000 songs waiting for you, or you have 150 songs waiting for you, and so on. And these are songs, not the songs that you just bought, but any song, most songs that you bought since 98. If you bought a CD in 2000, you'll get all the songs from that CD as part of auto-rip program. And obviously, we are giving music to customers. So as expected, customers were elated. Everyone loved it. The types of feedback, the negative feedback we received were, how dare Amazon put Nickelback in my library, for instance? So why are you putting music by this artist in my library? I'm like, dude, you just bought it. You bought Nickelback in 2000. So you made that choice, not us. But it's one of those features that has been so loved by customers and the press and industry that it deserves. I think it's a service that we've done to the overall both music industry as well as the customers. So I want to talk about the PR fact process for that. So this is one of the mock PR facts, the press releases. I've just taken an excerpt from this. It's probably not the final one, but before we started building this, way before we started building this was one of the examples or draft of the PR FAQs. The lines I've highlighted are quite interesting, where, look at the few lines. Without waiting for CDs to arrive in mail. So we're trying to clearly write customer, like the expected customer value or the customer benefit. Provides an additional benefit by automatically placing an MP3 song of purchased CDs on customer's behalf. Like we had the agency to do it on customer's behalf, and so on. The reason I'm showing this is when we launched it, and this is like by artists and customers. This is a Wall Street Journal article. So we had written that mock press release about a year in advance, a year ago. When it released on the day of launch, it was amazing to see Wall Street Journal actually pick up some of those same lines. And this was not, and Wall Street Journal hadn't seen the drafts, obviously. Automatically download digital versions, TechCrunch, similar free MP3s, so on. So you get the idea, is to project the end state, project the customer benefit as to how we believe press should see it, how we believe customers will react to it ahead of time before we start writing code or so on. And this helps us, both ourselves as well as the broader teams and stakeholders, visualize. In addition to the mock press release, we also frequently ask questions, obviously all the 5 whys and all the dependencies and why now, so on and so forth. Now, what will happen to mobile apps? What will the labels say? What will the industry say? Is there a limit? What if the artist doesn't like it? So on and so forth. A quick example of, just a sketch. It's important to put things in pictures so that the broader team can visualize it. Oftentimes, we may be able to communicate more through pictures than through words, or pictures augment the words. So we do insist on having some kind of mocks. And if you're designing for voice, you can kind of do a flow or write down the dialogues, text-to-speech dialogues, and so on and so forth. Why is it important? Because if you write, typically these are 6-page documents. If you spend 6 pages worth of narrative, I don't think that there'll be any doubt in your mind about what you're trying to build. At least you'll have clarity of thought as a product builder, as a team that's building this. And I've lived through it for almost a decade, and I don't know any other way of building products, to be honest, that is more effective than this. So I thought I'll share this. And as a final thought, actually, a few questions worth thinking. Go ahead, Josh.
So when do you interface with business development and marketing?
Throughout, in the beginning.
So like as you're writing a press release, you're part of that?
Yeah, business development, marketing, all stakeholders at the beginning of the stage. I think if they have a role to play, they are part of the discussions and at least reviewing the questions. Or if there are some FAQs, we'll assign the FAQs to the business development stakeholder and say, hey, could you please help write the answer to this FAQ? Yeah, it works. Go ahead, John.
What size products do you normally, like what's the line when you're going to do all?
We do it for features. The next question was, is it restricted to a certain type of, certain size of a project or a product or a feature? And we use it for everything. We use it for both internal and external products, features as well as large products, for process changes. My admin uses it for office moves. No, it's just across the board we use it. It works, I think, and it's a common vernacular. It's a common set of vocabulary that works. That most people at Amazon are very familiar with, so it works for us. Make sense? So quick questions. Now understand what the customer's real intent is. Write down ideas, write down narratives, even if you're not doing the press release. If you write it down, it enforces clarity of thought. I think full sentences do enforce clarity of thought, so I'd encourage doing that. And give it a shot, see if it works for you. When reduce friction, make something simpler, people do more of it. I've seen it over and over and over again. I'd encourage you all to reevaluate, to take one more look at your existing product experience and see where can you reduce the number of steps, where is friction, where can you reduce friction, and think about it. The end of my prepared remarks. Any other questions? Go ahead, Michael.
You said you work for Microsoft as well?
Yes.
So what's the key difference?
Key difference between Microsoft and Amazon. I think I'm not qualified to say that. I'm not qualified to say that now because it's been a decade. There's been a change in leadership, change in things. I think I can talk about the similarities. I think both have extremely smart people, and both work on products that impact hundreds of millions of customers. So I worked on Office and Microsoft and more enterprise, and in Amazon I focused primarily on consumers. So my personal interactions and differences were more around the people I worked with and the customers I worked for and so on. But there are quite a few similarities and positive things for both. Lance?
So I think your Alexa versus the Music 76. So two very general principles. So on a product-specific basis, when you're entering a market where you're second or third player, or where you're late, versus a place like Alexa where you would really be first, does your method change, or do you think about the space differently? Because how would you compare and contrast those two product challenges?
Yeah, Lance's question is around, hey, if you are not the first mover in a certain market segment, how would you inform your product choices and so on? I think in abstract, the high order bit is to identify the discrete values or benefits that customers value, and see where you have an advantage that only you can provide in the market segment. And when I say advantage could be that your willingness to do certain things, like your willingness to offer certain things and so on, or your willingness to design a product in a different way. That could be anything. And see where you can actually move the needle in terms of customer experience, but focus on a few set of discrete customer advantages and focus on that, as opposed to trying to outdo what the competition is doing. So if company A, which is already in the market, or product A, is really good at maps, and I won't try to do another maps, for instance, as part of this. So Lyft versus Uber, let's just say. If Uber is really good at maps, I won't. If I'm starting Lyft, I'm not going to just try to build better maps or so on with Uber. I'll try to have a different angle, for instance.
But the customer expectation is often largely set by those first groups, right?
Customer expectations, the baseline customer expectations are set by the users, by the existing players. But that's where some of the talking points around invention, where we talked about that. Hey, customer expectations, where I want to type in name of the song and I want to get a song. We addressed those customer needs, but we really dug even deeper into it and figured out what was the unmet need. Yes, I want to be able to download music. That's a premium benefit, but downloading was not sufficient. But where can we push the envelope even further? So it's taking existing discrete customer benefits and innovating on top of it. Makes sense?
One more. We'll make it two more, but very quickly, so we have relation.
I'll answer very fast.
Thanks so much for speaking.
Thank you.
I was curious, since Amazon Prime is a subscription-based service, how do you approach prioritization for your product, considering like business growth, because you have like user desirability, technical complexity? Like, do you consider like revenue growth or profits and that kind of stuff when you're thinking about the product?
Yeah, I think I'll abstract out the question. How do you prioritize? I think after listening, the first question I asked, like, what's the number one thing that you are paid for, is listening. A close second is prioritization, especially as PMs and product managers. And various frameworks that work. One that has worked for us, parts of our teams, is we call it ICE. Are you familiar with ICE? ICE. ICE stands for impact. I, impact. C is confidence. What's our confidence that we'll be able to have that impact? And the third is ease or effort. And then we take a weighted average, list down all the projects, look at ICE scores for each, like based on weighted average, and prioritize. That's one aspect. Now, impact, to your specific question, not to deflect your question. Impact can be measured in terms of customer value. And customer value could be the revenue, engagement, or whatever value that you're trying to optimize for. And then look at, hey, how confident you are in able to deliver that impact. And third is it going to take you several years to build, or a few months, and what's the ease or effort? Make sense? Some people also use RICE, RICE, reach, impact, confidence, and effort. It's one of those. And take a few vectors that are important for your teams and your market segments, and weighted average and try it out. Makes sense? Easier said than done, trust me. Last question.
So, Kintan, going back to just listening to the customer and being customer obsessed, can you just give examples around the times when you're getting ahead, where the customers don't even know what they want in certain cases, and you're thinking big, you're being customer obsessed, but at the same time, the customers aren't giving you any information on what they want or what is the problem, but you are actually inventing on their behalf?
A lot of these things, lyric search, like Alexa, play the song that goes blah, blah, blah. Because the customers did not ask for it. We observed that customers were asking for songs in this way, and we saw that there was a unique opportunity to solve that need. So customers were not asking that, hey, I want in the customer support emails or feature requests, we didn't say, hey, I want lyric search. We saw that lyric search was failing, and we saw an opportunity to innovate there. So it's all about observation. Make sense? You want to do just one more? Just the last question.
Going back to the ICE, I was wondering how it works when different people on the team maybe have different ICE scores for something. Because I guess I work in a place where being customer obsessed is probably challenged most by everyone has their own vision. And I'm curious how you bring the group together so that you can write one press release.
Yeah, I think that differentiates a good product manager from the rest. Like the ability to bring everyone together. But to distill that down further, It starts at the very core first principles around, is everyone aligned on the core tenets of informing decisions? That when there are conflicts, how will we prioritize and prioritize, or how do we solve conflicts? Does everyone have shared objectives? Because if one stakeholder is optimizing for customer value and the other stakeholder is optimizing for something else, and the third stakeholder, then the objectives are not shared. So we start at the shared objectives and then do it. It's super important to, as a product leader, I think it's important to make sure that everyone's on the same page, either they've agreed or disagreed and committed that these are the shared objectives, this is our decision-making framework or set of tenets, and use that so that the high order bit is to shift value from resolving conflict or resolving prioritization conflict at the time of conflict to before the conflict might even happen. So you can refer back to the set of tenets, a set of prioritization criteria. Say, hey guys, we had agreed upon this shared objective, so let's stick to that. Does that make sense? Super hard to do if the teams are not aligned. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time today, and thank you for having me here. I'm Kintan at Amazon.jobs, same as Zillow. I'm sure Amazon has a bunch of jobs as well. So thank you again, and I'm very genuinely, I hope that you'll make the world a better place by building products that really move the needle. So thank you for your time.
Perhaps we can give one more round of applause for Kintan. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. That was really good. So how can we reach you, or can we reach you after? That's the advantage of getting in early. You can lock up your name. I see. That's great. Great. Thank you very much. I have a Products That Counts book that I'll give to you as well, but I really appreciate your time and attention. And I thank Zillow very much, and Nate and the entire team. And again, anybody who's interested in talking to the Zillow team a little bit more about potential jobs that are opening, the gentleman on the left, if you have Tom, please go and approach him. We'll have some time left. And we have a lot of pizza and a salad left that we have to consume in about 15 minutes, so please have at it. You'll receive an NPS survey. We're always interested to know how we're doing. And then in your comments, if there's somebody that you'd like to hear, a topic that's of interest to you or something of that sort, please let us know. If there's a way that you'd like to continue the community offline, to bring it together online, whether it's Meetup or, hey, we're getting together for dinner, let us know that too. We'll try to, those are actually really good points, and we try to read and respond to all of them. The next event is June 13th, and we have Matt Conway. He's with Google now. He's been doing a lot of work with autonomous vehicles, but the talk specifically is the intersection of design and ethics. You know, what is good enough? And he's also a very funny guy, so I think this will be an excellent topic. And now we also open up the floor for a couple of minutes if anyone has a shout out. If you're looking for a job, come up and say, hey, I'm looking for a job and this is what I'm looking for. If you're looking for an internship, or if you're recruiting, or even if you have something you really want to share, not sales and marketing as much, but just a shout out, I invite you to come up right now as well. There's a book. All right, Justin, thanks.
Thanks, Ann. My name is Justin. I go to the Foster School of Business. I graduate in June from the Masters in Entrepreneurship program. So if you have any questions about entrepreneurship, please, you can find me here. You can email me. I'll be around to talk to people about that, because I think it's an awesome program for anyone that wants to be a product manager and might want to find a program that helps people understand how to lead small teams. Second thing, I'm also looking for a job, so I'd love to meet everyone here and learn about their companies and try and find a place that I'd fit in. So anyways, thanks for coming. I think this was awesome.
Yeah, thank you. And that also reminds me, thank you very much for Rami, Mark, and Justin for volunteering your time tonight. It really makes a difference, and it's nice to have partners in this effort in addition to Zillow as well. Anything else? Great. Well, thank you. Oh, okay. Great.
Hi, I'm Jenny, and I'm with the University of Virginia Business School. And so for any of you out there, I've got about 10 women second years who've got amazing finance and product experience. So if any of your companies are truly behind that inclusion and also can do H-1B sponsorship, I'm Zenner, Zenner, at virginia.edu.
Great. Thank you very much. Any other shout-outs or announcements? Well, thank you very much, Justin and Jenny. Thank you, Nate, and the entire Zillow team. Thank you again to Kitan. And please enjoy more pizza and beer and community, and look forward to seeing you on June 13th. Bye.